Finding the roots of your franchise is a complicated effort for some. For the most well-known one in gaming, Super Mario, it's easy, commonplace, and almost neutral in execution. For others, such as Final Fantasy, who try to innovate with each entry, sometimes they can find and improve upon them, while with others they can be lost and almost forgotten. Fire Emblem tends to jump between the two. From the original Fire Emblem to Radiant Dawn, every entry has seen their own quirk added into the mix while trying to maintain the same level of adventure and wonder that had been there from the very beginning. But as the franchise went on and changed hands with nearly every entry, it became difficult to keep to this over the years. As time began to wane, many began to lose interest in the franchise they so dearly loved. With their experiments a failure, Intelligent Systems saw only one option. They must return to their roots once again. With their efforts on consoles deemed a failure in the eyes of Nintendo, Intelligent Systems had to prove themselves once again. If the Fire Emblem series kept failing financially time and time again, it was possible the plug would be pulled for good. So, since the Game Boy Advance titles had sold so well, the team thought it would be best to return to handhelds and turn their heads to the brand new Nintendo DS. Before anyone could answer that, however, Fire Emblem once again made its triumphant return in the Super Smash Bros. Series with Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Marth came back as the series' titular character, of course, but Roy was nowhere to be seen. Instead, the more recent Ike was added and given his very own moveset that made him less of a simple clone to Marth. Even though the rest of the world's love of Fire Emblem was waning, director of the Super Smash Bros. Series, Masahiro Sakurai, still had great admiration for the franchise after all these years. Fire Emblem was now a mainstay of the series, but it was still unknown if this would at all help the franchise's diminishing returns. But what direction should they take the series in? Should they try to innovate and change their very nature like they thought to do with the elusive Wii title? Or was a reboot in order? In actuality, it turned out to be a return to what made the series what it is today. Franchise producer Tohru Narihiro thought it would be best that they should remake the original Fire Emblem from the ground up and introduce a new audience to this old tale. His team sought to draw from the NES version as much as possible. According to Narihiro, the volume of content and the length of the scripts had increased vastly since the beginning, and a simpler story could prove to be a boom for the series. Even Marth, the titular character of the series, was slightly redesigned to fit their new approach, but only so much as not to make the character unrecognizable. Either way, it was time for them to try and regain the success they once had. Their final version was Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, releasing in 2009 for the Nintendo DS. In all aspects, it was the same story as before, but with some slight additions. Just like the original, it told the story of Marth and his quest to reclaim his homeland of Altea from the evil priest Garnif, and to slay the dragon Medeus, with the Fire Emblem and Falchion in hand. But, unlike the old Mystery of the Emblem from the Super Famicom era, Shadow Dragon had every single chapter and character from the original along for the ride. And to further flesh out the plot, Marth was given a 4-chapter prologue to put his adventure into perspective. Gaiden chapters returned as well, adding never-before-seen side content to the adventure. But because of the Nintendo DS's dual-screen capabilities, Intelligent Systems was also able to finally implement another one of Shozo Kaga's ideas for the first game. This came with the introduction of custom artwork for each cutscene, giving them more emotion than the standard conversations could hope to achieve. However, there were still more changes to the original to be had. The weapon triangle system that had become a staple of the franchise was of course put into play, changing the course of how many older battles were won. A new class swap feature was created as well, which allowed characters to change classes from, say, a knight to a mercenary, with several special classes such as lords and thieves exempted. Nearly all of the innovations from the title succeeding the original Fire Emblem made it into this entry, all culminating in a series first, Wi-Fi battles. Via Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, players could challenge their friends and random players from around the world to 5-on-5 matches. Victory was determined by either defeating the opposite army or capturing their flag, so players had to plan out their strategies even more so, as now they had real, live, and unpredictable human beings to contend with. The impact of this implementation wouldn't be felt for some time. When looking at all of this, it seems that Shadow Dragon was a near-perfect remake of the original with all of the new bells and whistles the series had come up with over the years, although it was missing something that had become crucial to many of the Fire Emblem faithful: support conversations. Fans had come to love the little tidbits and insight that they learned from these over the years, making characters that they never would have given a second thought to care about all the more memorable. With the exception of Marth and a few key players, you wouldn't understand who these characters are, let alone their motivations. This absolutely destroyed the game in the eyes of some fans, with many proclaiming it to be the worst Fire Emblem ever created, even when it was a nearly by-the-books remake of the original. This was not the reception that the team at Intelligent Systems had hoped to gain with their simpler storytelling style. There had to be something, anything that they could do to earn the trust back from their fans, and so they decided to remake, or rather retell, a story that was always an extension rather than its own beast. That beast was Fire Emblem: New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow, a remake of Book 2 of the Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem. Releasing in 2010 in Japan alone, the first title to do so in years, New Mystery of the Emblem attempted to flesh out the forgotten sequel of the original while also adding in sought-after features, such as support conversations that were missing from Shadow Dragon. This brand new yet familiar tale follows Marth, 1 year after the War of Shadows, in the current War of Heroes against a newly resurrected Medeus. However, he is not alone in this effort. While of course there is his own army of heroes, both new and old, a new secondary protagonist who had been lost to the annals of history takes center stage: you, referred only as the Hero of Shadow. This new character, or My Unit as the game lovingly titles it, is a fully customizable avatar for the player to inhabit, with the ability to choose to be male or female. You even had your own prologue and guidance chapters dedicated to your own story and mission, with previously unobtainable units from titles such as BS Fire Emblem becoming available. In total, nearly 81 characters were recruitable, making it the largest roster of Fire Emblem characters ever created, a fact that remains true to this very day. But there were still several other additions that changed the Fire Emblem formula. For instance, DLC was introduced, a first for the series and many mainline Nintendo titles. With the Assassins expansion, players had even more reasons to continue with New Mystery of the Emblem weeks after release. However, in a decision that changed Fire Emblem forever, casual mode was made a part of the series. This mode took away one of Fire Emblem's main selling points, and for some, crucial gameplay mechanics: permadeath, a feature that had been boasted about ever since the very first Fire Emblem. Now, players had the ability to turn it off and regain their lost units after each battle, drastically changing the flow of battle and possibly the point of it all. Since the characters of Fire Emblem had always been so personable and well written, the games had always forced you to think wisely about your actions, whether it was a fight or simply moving your units one space. This issue tore apart the Fire Emblem community. The faithful found it to be blasphemous, destroying any and all semblance of difficulty, while others were finally able to play the franchise they had so desperately wanted to after all these years. It was definitely a toss-up, and one that not only racked the community, but the developers themselves with guilt. Many of the developmental staff worried that it destroyed everything that characterized Fire Emblem. It created a type of security where your characters were prevented from dying so you didn't have to redo anything while still retaining the same essential game. While this polarized fans, the reception wasn't that great either. Sales had only slightly increased over these two entries, and it just showed no sign of improving. Nintendo saw this as well and was looking over the shoulder of Intelligent Systems, wondering if the franchise was even worth it anymore. But before pulling the plug forever, Nintendo decided to give them one last chance to save the franchise they love. If they didn't pour their hearts and souls into the project and make the ultimate culmination of the series' efforts, they would surely meet their own fate. Hello, dear viewer, and thank you so much for watching another episode of Chronicles. If you enjoyed hearing about the origins of Fire Emblem, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for something new every week. But who am I? Well, I'm Lockstin, the main voice of Chronicles of Gaming. If you want to learn more about gaming with theories and reviews alike, then check out my channel here for more. So what's your opinion on the remake of Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon? Is it really as bad as everyone thinks? Chris and I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below, and don't forget to check out our website where you can read scripts for the latest episodes a week early. Anyway, That's it from us. Don't forget to stay awesome and continue that thirst for knowledge.